If your pet passed while you were away on vacation and they were at the vet, or they were with a pet sitter, or by tragic circumstances when you couldn't be there with them, you might be wondering if they died alone. And if you've been carrying guilt ever since, this story may change how you see everything. There's a specific kind of pain that can follow pet loss. It's not just grief, it's the ache of wondering, were they alone? How could I have failed them at the time they needed me most? Or it's all my fault. I wasn't there for them. If I had been there, this wouldn't have happened and they wouldn't have died. These questions and beliefs we have don't come from logic, they come from love. And today, I want to share a story. It's a soul level teaching that may gently shift how you're holding those questions and those beliefs. So, this is a story about a dog named Scout, his person, Judy, and a woman named Angie, a pet sitter, who unknowingly stood at a sacred threshold. It's also something I've come to understand through my life with my animals and work with people and the animals, something I now call a soul crossing guard. Scout was Judy's everything, not in a sentimental way, but in a life thread way. And Scout had been with Judy through some of the hardest chapters of her life. I mean, he was there through health challenges, long days of not feeling well, nights when her body felt so fragile and uncertain, and she was afraid. He was there through marital struggles, quietly positioning himself at her feet when she had the weight of really hard conversations that felt too heavy to carry. And he was there when she lost both of her parents in a tragic accident. Was lying at her feet, lifting his head when her breath caught and staying close to her when her words stopped working and her heart was aching so badly. Scout wasn't just a dog who lived with Judy, he lived with her life. He knew her rhythms, he knew when she needed grounding, he knew when she needed comfort without any questions. So when Scout passed, while Judy was on vacation, peacefully in his sleep, in less than 24 hours before she came home, Judy was devastated, and understandably so. But beneath the grief was something heavier, guilt, not just sadness that she wasn't there. It was a deep sense of responsibility, that if she had been home, something might have been different. Boy, do I know that one. That being away meant she had failed him at the very moment he needed her most. And it's something she couldn't get over. And that's a belief so many people, all of us sometimes carry around pet loss, that we are solely responsible for how, when, and why our animals pass. But I want to tell you something. Animals are not passive participants in their lives or in their deaths. Animals are conscious beings with their own soul awareness. They participate in their relationships. They participate in their lessons. They're learning them too. And they also participate in their transitions. I've learned this with my animals over and over. They sense timing. They sense readiness. They sense when their work in physical form is complete. Just as how they show up for us in life, they also choose on a soul level how and when they leave. Not to abandon, but to teach, protect, and complete the circle of love. So, as our session unfolded, something unexpected happened. Another presence stepped forward, not just Scout, but Harry, the dog who had belonged to Angie, the pet sitter, and who had passed several years before. Harry had been Angie's true soul partner as well. They had traveled the country together. They did everything together. She would make public appearances and he would be there. Harry completed Angie's world. And he came through with such clarity and purpose and literally said something that reframed everything. He told me, I am a soul crossing guard. Wow, the words landed instantly, not as a metaphor, but as truth. A soul crossing guard is not someone who causes death. It's a very sacred position. They don't decide timing and they don't take responsibility for outcomes, not their job. They are literally a guardian of transition. And, much like a crossing guard helps someone safely move from one side of the street to the other, like a school crossing guard, a soul crossing guard stands at the threshold holding calm, steady, loving presence as that soul moves from physical form to spirit. They don't pull the soul across, they don't rush it. They simply make sure the crossing is peaceful and that the soul is not alone. Now, Angie didn't know she was doing this. I mean, she didn't volunteer for it. She wasn't consciously choosing it. But Angie is deeply grounded, intuitive, and spiritually open. Her nervous system is very calm, open. Her presence is steady. Such a beautiful spirit. And sometimes spirit works through people kind of as a proxy. And Angie became what I would call a proxy soul crossing guard, someone whose energy creates a bridge, a safe one, even without conscious awareness. And so, in many ways, she was also serving kind of as a soul doula, not by training, not just by nature, holding calm, loving presence as Scout transitioned. Scout trusted her presence. Scout knew what he was doing. And Harry in spirit stood alongside, guiding every step of the way. Angie wasn't the destination, she was the bridge. And here's where, the soul contract deepens. Angie carried her own unresolved guilt from Harry's passing. She had believed that she hadn't caught things early enough, you know, that she could have done more, prevented it, stopped it. So when Scout passed in her care, I'm telling you, those old wounds surfaced. What if I missed something again? What if I failed him too? She felt so guilty. And Scout knew this. And Scout chose this. So, we often think of soul contracts as one to one, but sometimes they form triangles. And in this story, you've got Judy and Scout, you got Angie and Scout, and you've got Judy and Angie. So Scout's passing wasn't only about leaving his body, it literally was bigger than that. It was about bringing two women together to heal the same wound from different sides. Judy was healing the wound of absence and responsibility. Angie was healing the wound of blame and self doubt. And they kind of crossed over with each other. Scout was the common thread, the love, the true teacher. Animals have their own soul paths. They come into our lives with intention and they leave with intention too. And even at the end of their physical life, I've seen it time and time again. They are still teaching us. Sometimes their passing itself is their final lesson, and often it's our greatest gift. I know I've experienced that. Scout wasn't a victim of circumstance. Trust me, he was an active participant in his transition. Nothing went wrong. Something meaningful unfolded. Some souls choose to pass when their person is away. That's happened to me. Maybe because they don't want their humans' final memory to be their death, or they want to protect their person from trauma. Maybe they feel complete and at peace. Maybe they have one more lesson and gift to share. Often that's the case. They know that a safe, loving presence will be there. And even at the very end, they are still teaching. In fact, their deaths often propel us into true spiritual growth, which is one of their greatest gifts to us. That doesn't mean they loved you less. Oh, no. It means they loved you with an incredible awareness, an incredible love. Scout shared that he didn't want Judy's last memory to be of his passing while she was away and spinning this narrative. Every pet in spirit shares this with me. He wanted her to remember their life. He knew that she would feel him. He also knew that she would sense his presence. Judy wasn't absent. She was held in love from both sides of the veil. So when we look at a situation, it can seem like something went terribly wrong. I've done it myself. But when we have the courage to look into it, like a bigger meaning begins to reveal itself. This wasn't abandonment. This wasn't failure. This wasn't a mistake. It was soul choreography. And no soul passes alone. If your pet passed when you weren't there, and if you've been carrying guilt and responsibility or regret, I want you to hear this gently in your heart. Your pet had agency. Your pet had a soul path, and your pet was accompanied. Someone stood at the doorway, a soul crossing guard. Souls don't cross alone. They cross accompanied by love, standing watch at the edge of worlds. If this video touched you, please like and subscribe, and oh my goodness, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, love always knows the way home.